So at first blush, it looks like a toy. And in fact, I have seen toys, the kind of thing that you can buy today for a couple $100, and that uses focused brain waves to control the toy. I'm thinking about flight. It controls flight. But then when you consider that a powerful, massive, hugely wealthy, and tough-minded investment fund like OMERS first led a venture round of $6 million and are now about to follow it up with a Series A round of $15 million, you have to wonder what Ariel Garten really has up her sleeve. So, Ariel, come and tell us why they gave you $21 million.
It hasn't been announced yet. Hello, my name is Ariel, and this is my brain. And this is my brain on my smartphone. So you're actually seeing inside my mind right now. This is my brainwave activity. This is the electrical activity that's created inside my head. I'm able to see that using this. This is Muse, the brain sensing headband. It's able to track your brain activity in real time and send it to your smartphone or tablet. From there, it really opens up the world of your mind, lets you see inside yourself, and lets you do some pretty amazing things. It allows you to understand and improve yourself, and also connect to the world. This technology was built right here in Toronto. And I'm going to take you through the adventure of how we built it, what we're going to do with it, and what it's going to do for you. But first, let's learn some more about our brains. So our brains are fundamentally electric organs. Our neurons communicate electrochemically, zipping pieces of information back and forth from one neuron to the next. We can read that activity outside your head with something just like this, an EEG. EEG is able to detect our brainwave levels, and you might have heard something about brainwaves. As you think, as you cogitate, as you engage in something, your beta activity increases on your frontal lobe. As you relax and start to chill right out, your alpha activity increases. We have bands like delta and theta. Delta you can detect while you're asleep. We have a whole range of activity happening inside our head and new ways to understand it. Now, EEG was first pioneered in the 1920s by this guy right up there. His name is Hans Berger. In the past, if you wanted to know what was going on inside your mind, you'd go into a clinical setting. You go into a hospital or a clinic and sit there very quietly while a technician covered your head in goop and 128 electrodes and lots of wires coming out of it. And if you deigned to peer over to see what the two nurses over there and the radiologist or the EEG specialists were doing, they would say, "Shh, don't move." Well, I have my EEG right here, and I have my own data in my pocket. So I've always been fascinated with how the world works. As a kid, I had a job in a research lab looking at embryonic stem cells. I've also been fascinated by the world of art. I also had a line of clothing that I designed, created dance pieces, musical experiences, because I was always very fascinated by how we communicate to one another. What are those things inside of us that are special, that are beautiful, that are human? Brainwaves were also very interesting to me because they're something that carried both scientific and technical information as well as this human information. So we're going to jump back in time to about 1999, the year 2000. This is Dr. Steve Mann. He and I began collaborating in the early 2000s along with an amazing cast of very intelligent people at the University of Toronto, including Chris Amity, one of my co-founders, James Fung, and we created a series of concerts where people could make music with their mind. They would slip on a single sensor EEG, and by modulating their brain state, they could change the music in the room. 48 people at a time would come together sitting there, creating and affecting music around them. We sort of looked around at each other and said, wow, this is pretty amazing. We're making and controlling the world with our minds. And the world probably needs to know about this. So I got together with Chris and my other co-founder, Trevor Coleman, and the three of us formed a company called Interaxion, which was to create brain-computer interface products and experiences and bring them to people. We thought, okay, so how can we really deliver the power of this technology to the world? And we said, well, we know. Let's actually move physical stuff with our minds. So we created the levitating chair. You would sit inside the chair, and as you would relax, the chair would rise to the ceiling. Our EEG system would detect the change in your alpha waves. Your alpha waves would increase as you relax, and the chair, just like you were some sort of guru, would rise to the ceiling, thanks to a handy-dandy brainwave-powered winch that we'd hidden up there. Okay, we said, well, this is incredibly cool. Now what's the biggest thing we can do with this technology? And we said, the Olympics. Well, it just so happened that we were noticed by the Ministry of Research and Innovation, and they invited us to this big concert at the Premier's Innovations Award, which was a huge honor. And from there, we passed on a proposal to our friends at the government, because they just invited us and said, hey guys, we think you're cool, and we said, we think we're cool too, can we please do something for the Olympics? And so together, we came up with a project that allowed people to control some very, very big things with their mind. The lighting on the Canadian Parliament buildings, the Niagara Falls, and the CN Tower. Over the 17 days of the Olympics, 7,000 people got to control the lighting on these massive icons in real time from across the country using their minds. We went from a team of 3 people to a team of 25 executing this project across multiple levels of government on a limited budget with this entirely unproven technology that nobody had ever heard of before in order to allow people to extend themselves across the country and touch their mind to the biggest thing they could find. And it worked. You would see people sitting there in the Ontario House across from a big screen showing them the icon they were looking at. And as you would focus on the CN Tower, it would start to spin. The more you focused, the faster it would spin. And you'd see people standing there saying, look up at the tower, that's Dad doing it, that's Dad doing it. And it was. For the last day of the Olympics, my parents actually drove out to Niagara Falls, and they stood, it was in February, so it was absolutely freezing. They stood at the edge of the falls and called me and said, are you ready? And I said, okay, I'm ready, look at the falls. And one by one, I changed each of the lights to pink. Now, once you do something for the Olympics, you can kind of do anything. And we were very excited by this technology and what it could do. So we started creating things like thought-controlled slot cars and thought-controlled toasters. And of course, since we're Canadian, a thought-controlled beer tap. This is Michael Apollo, our Director of Mind Sciences. He's about to pour a beer with his mind.
That's how you pour yourself a beer using your mind.
Thank you. So, controlling stuff with your mind is, of course, totally fascinating and something that fascinated all of us. But we sort of stood back and said, okay, well, what good is it really to be able to control stuff with your mind when we have minds that we should learn to control ourselves? As a company, our fundamental focus was on making things that were going to bring value to people, things that were going to be fundamentally meaningful in our daily life. Our mind creates our entire world. Your perception creates your reality. And if you want to change your world, the best way to do it is by changing your mind. I'm also a practicing psychotherapist, so I would sit in front of my clients hour after hour listening to people's stories and hearing the things that held them back, the things that caused them to feel stuck in their lives, the stories and the narratives they created about their world that may not have necessarily been true, that only existed up here. And we'd one by one go and tease them out and break them down and unlock them so that they could move forward and become the easy-to-be-with wife, the calm mother, the productive office worker, the person moving ahead in their career, become who it was that they wanted to be. So we saw a huge opportunity with this technology and those kinds of ideas to bring something really, truly meaningful to people. Because from my perspective, we're in a little bit of a crisis. I hate the word crisis because I don't like to dramatize things like that. But we create these environments for ourselves inside of our own heads that cause us to feel kind of bad every day. If you look at the statistics, 85% of the world suffers from low self-esteem. That's astounding. 75% of all doctor's visits are due to stress-related illness, and 1/3 of Canadians say that they're highly stressed. 2 billion people suffer from brain-based productivity challenges. When we look at our own lives, we look at our lives as women, we look at our lives as people who, work jobs. You look at a Forbes study, and it says that 40% of professional women feel like they're hanging on by a thread. And the reason we're doing it is because we create these narratives that create gilded cages for ourselves. Oh no, we're not good enough. Oh, it has to do better. Oh, he doesn't like me. Oh, she's frustrated with me for these things. And these stories generate sets of emotions, which generate our own beliefs and thoughts, which propagate these feelings that we need to kind of shut down and hide. I don't want people to hide anymore. And I don't want people to feel stuck, because you don't have to. So we took this tool that we've built, and we realized we could do something really amazing with it. We could help people learn to understand and manage their own minds, and in doing so, get unstuck in their lives. We do this in a really simple way. We do this by monitoring your brain activity when you're in 2 states. One is when your mind is active, when you're thinking, when you're ruminating and you're worrying, and the other is when your mind is calm and clear and focused. When we're thinking and ruminating, we're really being pulled away by distractions. And those distractions can be external, the sounds around us, our phone going, the kids screaming, any of those things in our lives that are so darn distracting. We're also distracted by things internal, the thoughts that we have, our inner critic, the emotions that we're feeling that pull us away from actually being able to do what we want to do. And we've created a program that teaches people to manage these distractions and let go of them so they can stay in a state of focused attention. We use a very simple metaphor, which is that your mind is like the wind. So when you're thinking, ruminating, your mind is windy. And as you come to a state of clear, focused attention, your mind is calm. Here's an example of the app that comes with Muse. So when you are sort of normal, that's what your brain looks like just as you go along. And as you come to a state of clear, focused attention, the sky clears, and you hear it is calm. And then as you start to think or worry again, the winds pick up. And then that's your cue to just bring it back to a state of calm. And then afterwards, you get to see what your brain was doing moment by moment in real time. You get to see stats, charts, graphs about your own brain activity and reflect back on your brain, building the skill of meta-attention. Now, studies show that when you do this, some amazing things happen to your brain. Harvard study from Sarah Lazar demonstrates that focused attention training like this maintains the thickness of your prefrontal cortex even through aging. Other studies demonstrate a decrease in amygdala activity in stressful situations, meaning that you're able to process the emotional reactivity within your stress and manage it effectively. So I wasn't really expecting the impact that this was going to have. We started shipping Muse about 6 weeks ago, and over the last probably 6 months have been working with a variety of individuals who've been using Muse. And the stories and the experiences that we're getting back have just been absolutely overwhelming. I'm actually just going to let some of them speak for you. So one of them is Aviana Chow. She's a Canadian Olympian. She's going to be performing the next Pan Am Games and has been using Muse over the last 6 months to improve her scores, decrease her anxiety, and be able to understand exactly when her mind begins to wander in those critical moments for her. There are other people who've used it a day.
I'm feeling pretty zen. It's really interesting how even little noises in the room can get your mind off track I've learned to de-stress myself because I'm a stressful person sometimes, but I know that I can control that. But this is really interesting to hear the feedback that the sensors are giving you. So it's pretty cool.
As I walked out of the office and as I started to get back into my world, I realized that I had laser focus, super powers as far as brain processing power, and my body was relaxed, my mind was relaxed, and I was really able to take control of my day.
By using these on a daily basis, I'm able to go in and calm my mind. Negative ruminating thoughts just wash away. They are no longer a part of my life so much right now because I'm able to quiet myself. I've definitely done that through the use of Muse, and I'll continue to use it because it's had such a significant change in my life. Thank you.
It's the last one that always gets me. The idea that these thoughts and these fears that plague us that aren't real can actually be shut down, and you can move forward and live your life freely and clearly. I get really emotional when I hear everybody's response to it. Getting emails from people with ADD who have found incredible benefit over just a few days, and their families have noticed. I get emails from like people's wives and husbands thanking me for the changes, and I was never really anticipating that we would have such an impact on people's lives from a day-to-day basis. I knew that your brain creates the world around you, but I didn't realize how powerful it could be when people took control of their own mind and started creating their own world. And this is actually just the beginning of this technology. We're working with people like Baycrest, research institutions like UCLA, UCSD, McMaster, on projects looking at depression, ADD, autism. And then we also have a second ambition for the technology, which is that it will allow you to actually interact and control the world around you. That it will allow technology to know something about you, so it can support your interactions on a day-to-day basis. So technology can continue to get out of the way, and we can continue to become more human. So I'd like to thank you all for supporting us in the building of Muse here in Toronto, and thank ideacity for the opportunity to share this here. And we're actually on the second and third floor with Muse, so if any of you want to try it, go find my team. They would love to talk to you. Thank you.
Lovely, Ariel. Very well done.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. I just want to be sure I understand it, and perhaps I'm just focused on the more material and obvious, but the interface between the human and the computer that I'm aware of has, within our recent lifetime, gone from typing on a keyboard
Yep,
to clicking on an icon.
yep.
We heard, I think, last year that gesture was going to be the new thing. But now you're talking about doing it with the speed and the ease of the mind.
Precisely.
And we'll be able to distinguish between the computer on our desk and the computer in the coffee pot and the computer in the toaster just in here.
Over time, you're talking about a 10, 15-year horizon, but when you look at the fact that voice-activated technology seemed like science fiction 30 years ago, and it's a standard way that we all call each other now, you can imagine where the future's going.
Indeed. You'll come back and tell us where the future is going.
Can't wait.
Thank you so much. Let's have our
Get a
picture.
picture. Oh, that's great. That is wonderful. One more.